What if a young boy's innocent words lead to a truth no one could ever imagine? A DNA test that changes everything. A discovery that will shake the lives of two strangers forever. In a quiet suburban neighborhood, a man in his early 40s, dressed in a sharp, well-tailored suit, stands outside an impressive mansion. His name is Marcus Knight, a successful but emotionally distant businessman. Despite the wealth that surrounds him, Marcus's life is plagued by emptiness. His luxurious home, although grand, feels hollow. His daily routine consists of meetings, contracts, and a never-ending cycle of work. Though financially prosperous, Marcus is haunted by a deep loneliness that he masks behind a stern demeanor. His only companion is his late-night scotch, which he sips in silence as the hours slip away. He keeps his personal life private, his heart locked behind walls of gold, making him a stranger to the world around him. On the other side of town, a few blocks away, is Sarah Green, a single mother in her late 30s. She works tirelessly to support her 8-year-old son, Luke, juggling 2 jobs with little time for rest. Sarah's life is a constant hustle, and her modest home is filled with both love and exhaustion. Despite the lack of luxury, Sarah's home is warm and filled with laughter. Luke, with his big brown eyes and tousled hair, is a ball of energy, always curious about the world around him. Sarah's world is marked by sacrifice, but her heart overflows with love for her son. She's learned to juggle the struggles of daily life, but her exhaustion is often visible on her face. One afternoon, while Sarah and Luke are enjoying a rare moment at the park, Luke spots a man walking alone, his sharp features standing out even among the crowd. His eyes are intense, and his posture betrays a sense of someone who's lost in his thoughts. Luke tugs at his mother's sleeve, his wide eyes filled with excitement. "Mom, look, that's my dad," he exclaims, pointing toward the man, who appears to be a complete stranger to Sarah. Sarah looks around, confused, but Luke's certainty catches her attention. She asks him softly, "Luke, what do you mean? That man isn't your father." Luke looks up at her, unfazed by her confusion. "He is, Mom. He looks just like me. He has the same eyes, the same smile. I know he's my dad." Sarah's heart skips a beat. She laughs nervously, brushing it off as one of those things children say. But Luke's conviction doesn't waver. He keeps pointing at the man who, unbeknownst to Sarah, has heard the entire exchange. The stranger, Marcus, is taken aback by the child's words, his curiosity piqued. He freezes for a moment, looking at Luke with a bewildered expression, unsure of how to react. It's an unsettling feeling, one that he can't shake off. He hears something familiar about the boy's gaze. He doesn't know why, but he feels an undeniable pull towards him. Later that evening, Marcus finds himself unable to shake the image of the child's face from his mind. He returns to his mansion, yet the place feels even more lifeless than before. The weight of the day's strange encounter presses on him as he sits at his desk, staring at an old family photo in his office. The picture shows a younger version of him, standing next to his late brother, David Knight. They were once inseparable, but after an argument years ago, Marcus had shut himself off from his brother's family. David had passed away unexpectedly a few years later, leaving behind a legacy Marcus couldn't bring himself to face. Meanwhile, Sarah can't help but replay Luke's words in her mind. She tucks him into bed that night, listening to him chatter on about the man at the park. "He's definitely my dad," Luke had said with absolute certainty. Sarah smiles weakly, not knowing what to make of it, but it nags at her. What if it's true? What if Marcus Knight is, in some strange twist of fate, connected to her son? The next day, Sarah makes an unexpected decision. She doesn't know why, but something about the encounter feels significant. After doing some research, she finds Marcus's name and address. Hesitant, she feels both curiosity and apprehension rise within her. Could the man at the park really be Luke's father? The possibility gnaws at her, leaving her unsure of what to do next. Unbeknownst to Sarah, Marcus is also grappling with the strange connection he feels to Luke. After hours of pacing the halls of his mansion, he calls up his lawyer, Mr. Edward Wells, a trusted confidant. Marcus shares the details of his encounter with Luke and the odd sense of familiarity he feels toward the boy. His lawyer listens carefully, offering no answers but suggesting they investigate further, urging Marcus to take a DNA test. At the same time, Sarah finally gathers the courage to knock on Marcus's door. As she stands in front of the grand mansion, her heart races. She hesitates, wondering what to say if the man answers. When the door opens, she's taken aback by the intensity of Marcus's gaze. She stammers slightly as she introduces herself and explains her son's claim that he is Luke's father. Marcus stands frozen, his mind racing as the words sink in. His heart races, and for the first time in a long while his emotions stir. A connection? A possibility? Something feels different. Here is something undeniable in the air, an invisible thread pulling them toward each other. Sarah watches his reaction closely, searching his eyes for any sign of recognition. The silence between them speaks volumes, and at that moment, Marcus makes a decision. "I'll take the test," he says, his voice steady but filled with a sense of resolve. The following days are a whirlwind for both Marcus and Sarah. Marcus, still trying to grasp the reality of the situation, arranges for a private DNA test. Meanwhile, Sarah continues her daily routine, but her mind often drifts to the possibility that her son's words might be more than a child's fantasy. She's not sure what to believe, but the thought that Luke might have a father, a wealthy one at that, seems like a dream come true. For the first time in years, Sarah feels a spark of hope, wondering if life might offer her a second chance. Days pass in a haze of anticipation as Marcus continues to keep to himself, and Sarah's nervous energy grows. She can't help but feel that she's standing on the edge of something life-altering. Her simple, modest life in a small apartment with Luke might soon be disrupted by something grander, be a truth she can hardly comprehend. Luke, on the other hand, seems blissfully unaware of the complexity of the situation. He continues to be fascinated by Marcus, drawing pictures of the man he's convinced is his father. The child's innocence and unwavering belief in his father's identity create a strange pressure for both adults. But Marcus can't deny that here is something about the boy that feels familiar, something about the way he carries himself, the way he looks at him. Sarah receives a call one evening from Marcus's lawyer, confirming that the results of the DNA test have arrived. Her heart races in her chest as she sets up a meeting with Marcus to discuss the results. She can barely sleep that night, her mind running through every possible outcome. What if the test shows no connection at all? What if it's a wild misunderstanding? But deep down, she can't ignore the feeling that here is more to this than just coincidence. When Sarah arrives at Marcus's mansion the next day, the atmosphere is heavy with tension. The grand foyer, usually so pristine and cold, feels like a battleground now, each step echoing as Sarah makes her way through the marble floors. Marcus greets her at the door with a calm, measured look, but behind his eyes lies an undercurrent of uncertainty. Neither of them knows what to expect from the results, but they're both bracing for something that will change everything. They sit down in Marcus's vast study, a room filled with rich mahogany furniture and polished silver accents, far removed from Sarah's humble life. The contrast is striking, but the shared uncertainty between them makes the space feel smaller, more intimate. As Marcus opens the envelope containing the results, the moment seems suspended in time. Sarah watches his hands tremble slightly as he reads the results aloud. Her breath catches in her throat as the DNA test confirms what both of them had feared and hoped for. The test shows an undeniable match. The man she'd just met, the man whose mansion she'd stood in, was indeed Luke's father. The words on the paper are stark, cold, and scientific, yet to Sarah, they feel like the beginning of a new chapter. The reality of the situation is overwhelming, and for a moment, Sarah and Marcus are both silent, taking in the gravity of the discovery. Marcus sits back in his chair, his face pale, trying to process the revelation. His mind races as memories of his lost brother David come flooding back. David's sudden passing had left a void in his life, and he never truly allowed himself to mourn it. But now, faced with this undeniable truth about Luke, it feels as though the universe is pulling him back to a family he'd lost touch with, a family he'd abandoned long ago. Could Luke be the child he never knew about? The child he never knew he wanted? The days following the DNA test are a whirlwind of emotions and confusion for Sarah. She can't stop replaying the moment in Marcus's study when the test results confirmed Luke's paternity. She's stunned, but here is also a sense of disbelief that keeps creeping in. Her life, which had been about surviving one day at a time, suddenly feels like it's been upended. She never expected anything like this. Meanwhile, Marcus is struggling with the enormity of the situation. For years, he had buried his past, focusing on building his empire. He had convinced himself that his brother's death had severed any familial connections, leaving him alone in the world. But now, faced with the truth, he can't help but question his decisions. Why hadn't he known about Luke? Why had he been kept in the dark? And most pressing of all, what was he supposed to do with this newfound knowledge? Sarah's initial shock begins to fade, and she finds herself thinking about Luke's future. The idea of having a father figure in his life is something she'd dreamed of for years, yet the reality of it feels overwhelming. She isn't sure how to navigate this new dynamic or what kind of relationship Luke should have with Marcus. Would Marcus even want to be a father? She's heard so much about his cold, distant personality, and she worries that he might reject the idea of having a son. Sarah decides to take a step back and give Marcus space. She doesn't want to push him into anything, but the uncertainty gnaws at her. She can't help but wonder if Marcus is even capable of becoming the father Luke needs. Meanwhile, Marcus begins to examine his feelings more closely. At first, the notion of being a father to a child he never knew existed was a shock. But as he watches Luke from a distance, he starts to see pieces of himself in the boy. The way Luke's eyes light up when he talks about his favorite things, the way he smiles without reservation, it's as if Marcus is looking at a younger version of himself. Over the following weeks, Marcus and Sarah tentatively navigate their new reality. Marcus offers to meet with Luke, not knowing what to expect but hoping that some connection can be formed. Sarah agrees, though she's still apprehensive. She's not sure if Marcus will be able to handle the responsibility of fatherhood or if this was all just a passing whim. But when the two of them finally sit down together with Luke, something unexpected happens. The moment Luke and Marcus lock eyes, T here is an undeniable connection. Luke's shy smile slowly turns into a beam of joy, and Marcus finds himself laughing in a way he hasn't in years. As the conversation progresses, Marcus begins to relax. It's clear that Luke is a bright, eager child with an infectious spirit. Despite his initial reservations, Marcus can't help but be drawn to the boy, who, in many ways, reminds him of the brother he lost. Sarah watches from the sidelines, a quiet observer, as the two bond over simple things. Marcus teaches Luke how to play chess, and Luke eagerly tries to grasp the rules, his small hands fumbling with the pieces. The atmosphere shifts from awkwardness to something warmer, more comfortable. Sarah begins to see a side of Marcus she hadn't anticipated. His cold exterior seems to melt away when he's around Luke, and she realizes that, perhaps, Marcus isn't the distant, unfeeling man she thought he was. T here is potential here. She thinks potential for healing, for growth, for a family she never expected to have. However, despite the progress, Sarah remains cautious. She's not ready to let her guard down completely. She knows that Marcus has a lot of emotional baggage and that he might not be prepared for the complexities of fatherhood. But she can't deny that, for the first time in a long while, T here is hope that Luke might finally get the family he deserves. The tension between Marcus, Sarah, and Luke reaches its peak when a family gathering is planned to celebrate Marcus's latest business achievement. It's meant to be a simple dinner, but the undercurrent of unspoken emotions and unresolved issues is palpable. Sarah feels a sense of dread as she watches Luke get dressed, his eyes shining with excitement. He's hopeful, too hopeful, about his new relationship with Marcus. But Sarah can't shake the feeling that it might all fall apart. When they arrive at Marcus's estate, the grandeur of the mansion feels almost suffocating to Sarah. She feels out of place among the opulence, as if she doesn't belong. But it's Luke who shines in the midst of it all, his innocence and enthusiasm making him the center of attention in a way that surprises everyone, even Marcus. It's during dinner, as they sit around the grand dining table, that the conversation takes an unexpected turn. Luke, without thinking, asks Marcus a simple question. "Are you going to be my dad now?" The room goes quiet. Everyone's eyes turn toward Marcus, who freezes in place. The question lingers in the air, heavier than any words spoken before. Sarah feels her heart drop to her stomach. She didn't want this moment to happen like this, not in front of so many people, not when they haven't even figured out what this new relationship means. Marcus's face hardens, and for a moment, he looks as if he's about to lash out. But then, something shifts in his expression. His gaze softens as he looks at Luke. T hears a flash of vulnerability in his eyes that Sarah has never seen before, a crack in his armor. Marcus stands up abruptly, excusing himself from the table. The room buzzes with tension, but no one dares to speak. Sarah feels her breath catch in her throat as she watches Marcus leave, knowing that whatever happens next will determine the course of their futures. Sarah follows Marcus into the garden, the cold night air biting at her skin. She doesn't know what to expect, but she's afraid of what she might find. As she approaches him, Marcus is standing near the fountain, his back turned. He looks distant, lost in thought, and Sarah wonders if this is the moment everything falls apart. "You can't just ask him that," Sarah says, her voice trembling. "He's a child, Marcus. He doesn't understand the weight of what he's asking." Marcus doesn't turn to face her, but his voice is low and strained. "I don't know what I am supposed to do, Sarah. I never wanted this. I've spent years building my life, burying the past, and now, I am supposed to be a father." Sarah steps closer, her heart aching for both of them. She understands the weight of the past, the scars that linger in the shadows, but she also knows the potential for healing. She can see the flicker of doubt in Marcus's eyes, the part of him that wants to step forward, to embrace his son, but is terrified of what that might mean. "You don't have to do it alone, Marcus," she says softly. "Luke isn't asking for perfection. He just wants someone to care. You don't have to be his father right away, but you have to decide if you are willing to try, if you are willing to face the past and build something with him." As days pass, the changes within the household become more and more noticeable. Marcus begins to show up to family dinners regularly, something that would have seemed unimaginable just weeks ago. Sarah, once unsure of whether their newfound dynamic could truly work, is now beginning to feel a quiet sense of stability. She notices how Luke's confidence is growing, how the boy's laughter now fills the room, no longer stifled by the absence of a father figure. One afternoon, Marcus sits at the kitchen table with Luke, helping him with his homework. Sarah, watching from the doorway, can't help but smile. This simple moment, something so many take for granted, is so significant for her family. Luke eagerly asks Marcus for advice on a difficult math problem, and Marcus, with a patience he never thought himself capable of, walks him through the steps. "I think I get it now," Luke exclaims, his face lighting up with excitement. Sarah feels her heart swell with pride. This wasn't the same Marcus who had once been focused only on his career. This man was changing, becoming someone she could trust, to care for her son. The layers of tension that had once existed between them seem to dissipate with each passing day. The pieces of the puzzle are finally falling into place, and Sarah dares to believe that their journey as a family, though still new, could have a future. Meanwhile, Marcus finds himself looking back on his own life with new perspective. The whirlwind of recent events, the shock of Luke's revelation, and the slow but steady bond he has formed with the boy have all brought him to a place of reflection. He's been so consumed with building his empire, hiding behind the walls of his success and wealth, that he had forgotten the simple joys of life, the ones that truly matter. One evening, while sitting in his study, Marcus finds himself leafing through old family photos. He comes across a picture of his late wife, the woman he had once promised to build a future with, and his gaze lingers on her smiling face. A wave of grief hits him unexpectedly. He had buried his grief so deeply over the years that he had almost forgotten what it felt like to mourn. But now, as he sees the picture, he realizes that it's not just his wife. He's grieving it's the man he used to be, the man who had once believed in love and family. He's long since buried that part of himself. But now, T here is hope again. Luke's presence in his life has reminded him of the possibilities of second chances. He's not sure what the future holds, but he knows one thing for sure. He doesn't want to keep running from his past anymore. He walks to the living room, where Sarah and Luke are watching television, and takes a seat beside them. It's a small gesture, but it's enough to show that Marcus is here, present, and ready to embrace his new life. The following days are a blur of small, tender moments. Sarah and Marcus start discussing their hopes for the future, their mutual dreams, and the realization that they want to build a life together, not just as co-parents, but as partners in every sense. They begin taking small steps towards healing, their shared grief starting to give way to a new kind of love, one founded on mutual respect and understanding. Luke's growth is evident as well. His relationship with Marcus continues to strengthen, and the bond between them becomes undeniable. It's no longer just about the DNA test or the shocking discovery. It's about the time they spend together, the conversations they share, and the simple fact that Marcus is there for him. Sarah watches this transformation with quiet awe. She never imagined this would be the outcome when Luke first pointed at Marcus and claimed him as his father. But now, it feels like the most natural thing in the world. One evening, as the three of them sit around the dinner table, Marcus looks up from his plate and meets Sarah's gaze. For a moment, T hears a silence between theme and unspoken understanding. Sarah smiles softly, and Marcus nods, a wordless acknowledgement of everything they've overcome. Luke, noticing the moment, grins. "You two look so happy. I think we're all going to be just fine." His words are innocent, yet they carry weight. It's as if, in that instant, Luke has validated the journey they've been on. The uncertainty, the doubts, the fierce all of it has led to this moment. The three of them, seated at the same table, sharing a meal, a family again. The days that follow bring a sense of peace, albeit one tinged with the remnants of past struggles. Sarah and Marcus begin discussing their future in earnest. Marcus, now fully committed to being part of Luke's life, is already making plans to attend parent-teacher conferences and other school events. Sarah feels a sense of relief she hadn't known she was craving. The weight of uncertainty of whether Marcus would stick around has been lifted, and she begins to allow herself the luxury of hope. As the weeks pass, Sarah also opens up more about her past struggles, her journey as a mother, and the hardships she endured before meeting Marcus. Marcus listens attentively, his heart growing heavier with empathy. He can't change what happened, but he can be there for her now, and that means everything. Together, they start building the life they once only dreamed of, a life full of laughter, shared responsibility, and most importantly, love. In the midst of this change, Sarah receives an unexpected call from the lawyer's office. The papers for the custody case have been finalized, and Luke is officially recognized as Marcus's son. The realization hits Sarah hard. Here is no turning back now. The past is no longer an obstacle. The future is wide open. Marcus is now not just a partner in their lives, but a permanent fixture. That evening, Sarah holds Luke's hand as they walk through the park. She looks down at him, her heart full. "You were right," she whispers. "You were right all along. He's your dad." Luke beams up at her, his eyes sparkling with joy. "I knew it." And for the first time in years, Sarah feels a sense of true peace. She doesn't know what the future holds, but with Marcus and Luke by her side, she knows they will face it together. Months have passed since the custody papers were finalized, and Sarah, Marcus, and Luke have settled into their new normal. Their lives, once filled with uncertainty, now feel rooted in stability and hope. The mansion, which had once felt like a cold, lonely place for Marcus, now echoes with the sounds of laughter and conversation. The changes have been nothing short of transformative. Sarah and Marcus's relationship has blossomed into a strong partnership, built on trust, love, and the shared responsibility of raising Luke. Marcus has become more than just Luke's biological father. He's a constant presence in his life. He attends school events, helps with homework, and even spends weekends teaching Luke how to ride a bike. Luke, in turn, thrives under the guidance of two caring parents who are committed to his well-being. As Sarah stands in the kitchen, preparing dinner one evening, she reflects on how much has changed. She still remembers the day Luke pointed at Marcus and proclaimed, "You are my dad." It seemed like an impossible declaration at the time, but now, looking at Marcus and Luke together, it feels like the most natural thing in the world. When Marcus enters the kitchen and wraps his arms around her waist, she smiles softly. "I never imagined it would be like this," she says quietly. Marcus chuckles, kissing the top of her head. "Neither did I, but I wouldn't change a thing." For the first time in a long while, Sarah feels a sense of peace. She's no longer afraid of the future. She knows that, with Marcus and Luke by her side, she can face anything. The emotional growth they've all experienced is evident in every aspect of their lives. Sarah and Marcus have even started discussing their own future marriage, perhaps, though they both agree they are content in the present, focusing on their family. Luke, meanwhile, is thriving in school, and his bond with Marcus has only deepened. One day, as they sit in the backyard, Luke turns to Marcus and says, "I know you are my dad, but you are also my best friend." The simplicity of the statement takes both Sarah and Marcus by surprise. For Marcus, it's a moment of pure happiness. Never thought he'd hear those words from his son. But here they are. It feels like everything has come full circle, and all the pain, uncertainty, and struggles of the past have led to this beautiful moment of clarity. That evening, as they sit down to dinner, Marcus looks around the table at Sarah, at Luke, and at the life they've built together. He's no longer the lonely man he once was, haunted by the past. He's a father, a partner, and someone who has learned to cherish the present. The camera pulls back, capturing the three of them sharing a meal together, a family bound not by blood alone, but by love, understanding, and the shared journey they've taken to get here. A few months later, the mansion becomes more than just a home. It becomes a place of healing and connection. Marcus, having fully embraced his role as a father, begins organizing charity events for local children, ensuring that others like Luke, who might not have the same opportunities, can benefit from a brighter future. He sets up scholarships, donates to schools, and even opens a community center for underprivileged families. Sarah, who once struggled to make ends meet, is now able to focus on her career aspirations as well. She volunteers her time at the center, guiding other women who are overcoming similar challenges she once faced. She's found her own strength and purpose in this new life, a life that was born from the love and unity they've built as a family. Their days are filled with small moments of joy, whether it's cooking dinner together or spending weekends hiking in the nearby woods. The scars of their past, Marcus's loneliness, Sarah's struggles as a single mother, have faded, replaced by the lightness of togetherness. They've built a future that's grounded in love, a future that will sustain them through whatever may come. Luke's growth continues to be a source of pride for both of them. He's flourishing not just academically but socially as well, surrounded by friends and a support system that's unwavering. Marcus and Sarah both know that the bond they share with him will never break, and they vow to continue nurturing it for the rest of their lives. The family's transformation is complete. Marcus, who once feared the weight of fatherhood, now embraces it with a sense of gratitude and purpose. He's no longer the man defined by his wealth or the mistakes of his past, but by the love he's cultivated within his family. Sarah, too, has found a sense of fulfillment that goes beyond the struggles of her past. Together, they are stronger than ever. As the story nears its end, the final shot captures the family walking hand in hand, with Marcus, Sarah, and Luke, all smiles as they make their way down a sunlit path. The mansion, once an empty shell, now feels alive with warmth and purpose. Their laughter fills the air, a stark contrast to the silence that once ruled this place. The message is clear. Sometimes life has a way of surprising us. The people we least expect can come into our lives and change everything for the better. The past, with all its pain and regret, no longer holds power over them. The future is theirs to shape, and they will do so together. As they step forward into this new chapter, the camera fades out, leaving behind a sense of hope, love, and the unwavering belief that family is what truly matters.